Okay, before we get started, I just want to show you these beautiful pictures which were sent to me by my friend Emma Baird. And they're pictures drawn by her two children, Maya and Aspen. And I'm bowled over by them. These are children aged 6 and 9. And I'm bowled over by how beautiful and how studied these pictures are. So I thought I'd put them at the beginning of this just to show you, what they're like. Absolutely beautiful. All right, boozy beef stew. Right, this is a beef stew made with loads of vegetables, and it's also going to be served up with some nice suet dumplings. And what's left over you can use as a pie filling. It'll do well as a steak and ale pie filling. It is made generally with Newcastle Brown Ale, which is what I really prefer to use this because it's malty and not too bitter and hoppy. And it's a fairly sweet beer. Right, okay. And don't worry about the alcohol in the beer because that cooks off at 74 degrees. Alcohol becomes a gas. We've got 700 grams of lean diced beef. Or you can get a small beef joint and cut it up. It's up to you how you do it. I've got a rather large onion here. I'm going to use all that. I've got a heart of a Savoy cabbage, or half a heart of a Savoy cabbage, which I'm going to use up. I've got about a cupful of cut green beans, which were frozen. I've got a clutch handful of carrots. I've got some salt. Got about a dozen mushrooms. I've got some flour for making the dumplings with, and these will be suet dumplings, really light suet dumplings. My secret ingredient is a bit of Thai fish sauce. I don't have any Worcestershire sauce, and Worcestershire sauce is basically like a fish sauce with vinegar in it, and but I actually do prefer to use this because I don't want that vinegar taste in my stew. It's okay now and again in the pie filling, but this adds a super umami flavour to it. This is optional, but if you do use it, you can thank me later. Right, I'm going to make herby dumplings as well, so I've got some dried mixed herbs there. You can use whatever mix of herbs you like. Thyme is a pretty good one, oregano, parsley, all those things are rather good for a herb dumpling. I've got pepper, I've got my beer I've already mentioned, and I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste or tomato puree. Right, the next thing I want to do is get all this prepped up. So as if by magic everything's all prepped. I'll leave the mushrooms whole, and the first thing I want to do is get this meat fried off, and I want to get it browned, so I'm going to brown it in batches over a hot stove. Right, so we need a nice hot pan, frying pan. I'm using this cast iron pan which is enamelled, and I'll just fry a handful at a time, but I want to get that very hot to start with. Right, I just want to tip in a few bits to start with. I'll do it about in 3 batches, I think. Because I don't want to lower the temperature of the oil. And then I'll just fry that, keep it turning and frying until it's browned off. Okay, once each batch is ready and browned, drain it off. I just take it out with a slotted spoon and then put it to one side and then work with the next batch until it's all done. I find it helpful to use tongs to flip the pieces of meat over to make sure it's evenly cooked, evenly browned. Alright, time to get the last batch of meat drained and out, and I'm going to show you another little trick I use now. And then into the remaining oil goes all the onions, smelling very beefy, and it's starting to smell a bit oniony now around here. And then we get the onions turned until they're translucent in the remaining oil. You may need to add just a little bit more to that. I'm using lard. Right, once that starts to go a little bit translucent, I've got a little trick. The one I was going to show you is to tip the juices that have come off the meat. And what that'll do, that'll help lift the fond off the bottom of the pan as well. And because I'm using mushrooms, I'm going to use them whole. I'm going to throw those in here and just get them turned a little bit in that delicious fond. Don't need a lot, just enough to punch the flavour into them. Okay, the rest of this stew takes place on the crock pot. And one thing I left out the ingredients list was my potatoes. So we're going to add some chopped up potatoes to whatever amount that you want, how far you want to make this meal go. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat off that now, and then I'm just going to pour a little bit of water in there to stop the bottom burning. Which should do the trick. Okay, over to the crock pot. Okay, first into the crock pot goes my meat. That goes in there. Okay, next in goes the onion and mushrooms. All of them, including the juices off the bottom of the pan. And we'll push that down a bit. Next thing goes the English Brown Ale. That's Newcastle Brown Ale, very popular over here, and I believe you can buy it elsewhere in the world. And then I'm putting that whole bottle in there. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to have a little sip of that to remind me what it's like. Just a sip. And then I'm going to turn my dial up to high. And then we let that cook for a while. And meanwhile, I'm going to have a little taste. Cheers. Sweet, malty, not too bitter. It's a delicious drinking ale. And it's excellent for cooking beef in. Another little shot I like to put in here is, if you like, you can use a couple of dashes of Worcestershire sauce, but I'm using fish sauce and putting in about a tablespoon of that. You can also use a dash of light soy sauce. Right, I'm just going to top everything up now with some water until it just covers everything, and then I'll give that a little stir. I want to put in about a tablespoon of tomato paste, maybe 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Tomato puree, 2 tablespoons. Get that in and mixed, and that adds another flavour of umami to this. So we've got the beef, we've got the anchovy flavour from the fish sauce, and we've got tomato, another great umami flavour. And let that cook for an hour or so, 2 hours, whatever, however long it takes. Okay, it's been a couple of hours. Let's have a look. Right, in goes now all my veg. So I've cut up my taters, and then occasionally I'll go in and I'll stir it, but I'll cover that now and then just let that cook. You can let that cook for a minimum of 2 hours, maybe 3, maybe 4. You can go put it on a low setting and it'll cook for half a day, even overnight in some cases, because it's a slow cooker. It's a crock pot, and that's what it's designed to do. So just let it cook. Okay, boys and girls, we had a bit of a disaster. This is the disaster recovery phase. I came after about half an hour and checked my crock pot, and the light had gone out. Couldn't work out what had gone wrong with it, and it certainly wasn't the fuse. So we tried that, and it didn't work. So I think I'll replace it with something a little bit better next time, or maybe get my brother to have a look at it and fix it. But right now I've got to go with the contingency plan of putting it into my stew pot, which I have done, and I'm bringing it up to heat again. And as soon as that comes up to heat, what I'll do is I'll turn it down to a low simmer and simmer it for ages. Right, I just want to get in some salt and pepper. I'm just going to taste it before I go. See how I am. Yeah, it definitely needs salt. And I'm putting some freshly ground black pepper. I love it. Plenty of that. And also a little bit of salt, not a lot, because there's salt in the fish sauce. So I think that should just about do it. And I'll stir that in. And I'll turn that down now to a low simmer for a couple of hours. Alright, for the herby dumplings. Right, these always swell up, and the suet dumplings, they really just swell right up, and they at least double their volume when they're cooked. So you need to prepare about half of what you think. So I'm putting in 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of flour, and they're pretty scant tablespoons of flour. And into that you want to put half a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, about a teaspoonful of herbs. So these are mixed herbs. Use any mixed herbs you like. Use Italian seasoning, whatever you like. You know, if you herbs de Provence, whatever you like, whatever takes your fancy. And you're going to want some pepper in there. Well, at least I am, because I love it. My logo should be a pepper pot. So mix that all in while it's dry, all the dry ingredients in while it's dry. And then we want 2, in other words half the amount of flour in suet, and I'm using a Tora suet, so I'm going to use 1, 2 of them, and then we'll need some water to mix it. So you make a well in the middle, pour in the water, just pour in a little at a time, and you want it to come together as a kind of soft dough. Not a lot, just a little, just so it comes together and cleans off the walls of the there we go, that's about right. And just until it starts clearing off the flour from the actual bowl itself. and then we'll leave that like that, let that stand there for about 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's fine. You can just cover it with a bit of cling film and leave it there for about 10, 15 minutes. Alright, I'm going to make up a slurry of flour and water. So that's 3 heaping teaspoons of flour. In fact, I think I'll go 4 heaped teaspoons of flour, because I like my stew nice and thick. And then I'm just going to mix in a little bit of water at a time to avoid it getting clumpy. If you want to do it easy, so you do it completely without any lumps at all, mix it with a little bit of oil, but that way it's adding more oil to your dish. And stir that until all the lumps are gone. Okay, we're into the last 20 minutes of cooking time, and that looks really gorgeous. I'm going to give it a quick taste test and do any final adjustments if necessary. You're not going to hear me say this often, but I don't need to do anything to that. That's perfectly adjusted. So I'm going to make a kind of well. I'm going to stir up my slurry really well, and I'm going to drop that into there, spread it around a bit, and then give it a quick stir, because we want that to start thickening up that gorgeous stew. And you'll see that does that almost instantly. Okay, I'm going to remove the cling film from that, and then I'm going to use 2 spoons. So I'm going to take a spoonful of my dumpling mix and then just scoop it in and drop it on top. And these are going to swell up to a good size, so leave a bit of space between them. Yummy herby dumplings. And these are not like the dumplings you get in other cuisines, like particularly in Caribbean cuisine, which are rather more like gnocchi or pasta compared to this. This is more bread-like, so it's a bit lighter, a bit more fluffy. Just different, not better, different. There's some lovely dumplings in Caribbean food. I had curry crab and dumplings on my trip to, on my last trip to Trinidad, and that was cooked by my friend Batman. And there were dumplings of about 3 or 4 different types, but most made with flour and coconut, and they were really great. So you see how they look now. We're going to cover that and let that simmer for about 10-15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And then we'll reveal it, and that will be it. Okay, see what this looks like, eh? As you see, look, they've really swollen up to almost twice the size of when I put them in, and that's delicious herby dumplings. Right, taste test. Alright, here it goes. Try some of that beef. Very nice indeed. Nice and tender. Oh, the best thing about this is the gravy, by far. It's got the unctuous beefiness about it. The vegetable flavours and the flavour of that beer. It's just amazing. I absolutely adore the taste of that brown ale in stews. That's really good. Right, now for the dumplings. I'm sure you're all going to want to see that. So as you look inside the dumpling, it's more like kind of bread than more like a kind of bread, really. Yeah. Lovely herbal flavours in there. Nice and light. Very bready and delicious. Potato and some green bean. All together, pretty amazing. Rather pleased with that. And that's it served up. Gorgeous. Boozy beef stew with herby dumplings. Enjoy. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you would like to follow my channel, please subscribe. And don't forget to click the bell icon and select all to receive notifications for all my future videos. It would be great to hear from you in the comments, and I'll try to get back to as many of you as possible. You may wish to check out these titles or even help me out with a donation using the links in the description below the video. Thanks for watching.